peripheral maritime regions. I must say that it's a great pleasure to be here today in North Sweden's office with this hybrid meeting, partly online, partly in real life. I think it's the first one of that kind I have for quite a long time now. I'm quite excited. The meeting we're having today is organized jointly by the North Sea Commission and the Baltic Sea Commission Transport Working Group of the CPMR. Just before getting to the content, few housekeeping rules. Now we're used to it. We're having so many online meetings for the last 2 years. So just please keep your micro off. You can keep your camera on. It's actually nice for me seeing your faces. It gives the feeling that I'm not alone speaking on a camera, that no one is actually listening and looking to what I'm doing. So quite a nice feeling. Second point regarding the questions. As you've seen, we have a really packed agenda. But it's really important that we manage to keep the meeting open. So therefore, if you have any question of any kind in relation with the matters we'll discuss today, we invite you to write it down the chat. In best case scenario, we'll have time to pass it on to the different guest speakers we'll have today. Worst case scenario, we'll note all the questions you have and we'll pass it on in writing to our guests today so that they can get back to you afterwards. So that's for the more formal rules. Now let's get to the content before we turn to our first part of the first speakers today. So as you all know, today we'll discuss the Trans-European Network for Transport. And you've all been working a lot on TEN-T for the last years, and the long-awaited proposal has been published by the European Commission in December last year, so a month and a half ago. So it's a really timely meeting, knowing that the Council has started to work on the proposal and the European Parliament is getting ready to do so. And we'll be really happy today to have really high-level speakers from the European Commission, from the European Parliament as well. So I think it will be a really, really nice meeting. And without any further delay, I know that you're not here to listen to me, but more to listen to the different guests we have today. And we'll start with both our geographical commissions that are actually organizing the meeting today and getting you together. And our first speaker will be Preben Fries, who is the chair of the Transport Working Group for the North Sea Commission. So Preben, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Lucas. I hope that everybody can hear me, and thanks for being invited to speak at this seminar. My name is, as mentioned, Preben Friezaug. I'm a councillor from Region South Denmark, and I'm chairman of the North Sea Commission Transport Group. The North Sea Commission is one of the 6 geographical commissions of the CPMR, a political governed cooperation platform for 27 regions around the North Sea in Belgium, the Netherlands, Germany, Denmark, Norway, Sweden, and the United Kingdom. The North Sea Commission is co-organizing this event with the CPMR Baltic Sea Commission and organization with which we have a long-standing and fruitful cooperation. The Baltic Sea and North Sea regions share many socio-economic features and interests towards the TEN-T policy. I thus therefore much appreciate the opportunity to present North Sea Commission interests and views on the draft proposal for a revised TEN-T regulation for representatives of the European Commission DG Move, members of the European Parliament, the EU trio and transport stakeholders. I would also very much liked to deliver this piece on spot in Brussels, but that was unfortunately not possible due to other commitments. The North Sea region is a major transport hub in Europe and vital for the competitiveness and sustainable growth in the EU and neighboring countries. TEN-T is crucial for promoting accessibility, as well as for ensuring quality, efficiency, safety, and sustainability of transport operations in the North Sea region. The network is also important for linking the EU up to third countries and the rest of the world. The TEN-T can contribute to sustainable and economic growth in Northern Europe, in line with the very title of this seminar. On overall, the North Sea region is well embedded in the TEN-T network, and many seaports, airports, and urban nodes are included in the core layer and in the core network corridors. However, the peripheral areas in the northern and western part of the region are not sufficiently integrated in the TEN-T network. These areas suffer from long distances to markets with extended transport times, higher cost, and fewer route options. The North Sea Commission has a long history of involvement in TEN-T issues. The Transport Group has been active throughout the revision process and has responded to public consultations and submitted position papers. We have also contributed to the positions of the CPMR. The North Sea Commission welcomes the draft proposal for a revised TEN-T regulation. We believe that this proposal would make the TEN-T better fit for decarbonization of transport, exploit the benefits offered by increasing digitalization, and foster resilience of the network. The North Sea Commission is furthermore pleased to note that the proposal contains many positive elements in line with our input to the consultation process. Here I would like to highlight the following: that territorial accessibility and cohesion has a more prominent role, that stronger focus on modal shift to sustainable transport modes, requirements for improved availability on alternative fuels, higher ambitions for maritime transport, a less restrictive definition of urban nodes, a strengthened service and user perspective, stronger obligations for aligning national transport planning and investments with the TEN-T regulation and the work plans of the European coordinators, and not at least that the European Transport Corridor ScanMed has been extended up to the ports of Frederikshavn and Hirtshals at Jutland in Denmark, in line with a long-held North Sea Commission position. Having said this, the North Sea Commission believes that there are issues in the TEN-T proposals which should be further highlighted, clarified, modified, or added to even further promote sustainable economic growth in Northern Europe. The TEN-T coordinator of the North Sea Commission Transport Group, Mrs. Linda Caroline Emark, will elaborate further on these issues in the next session. By this, I will conclude my speech, and thank you very much for the attention.
Thank you very much, Perman, for this very clear presentation and overview of the North Sea Commission's opinion on the proposal that the European Commission adopted. I would join your view actually on a proposal that enhanced the TEN-T as it stands, but even though that room for improvement remains. But indeed, there are many positive things in this proposal, I believe too. Our next speakers will be from the Baltic Sea Commission with Bosse Andersen, who is the chair for the Transport Working Group of the Baltic Sea Commission. Bosse, the floor is yours. Bosse, you're muted, I believe.
No, you hear me? A warm welcome from my side as well. My name is Bosse Andersen, chair of the Transport Working Group at the CPMR Baltic Sea Commission. Of the Transport Working Group at the CPMR Baltic Sea, and vice chair of the County Council Assembly in Region Stockholm. I'm very happy to be here today and welcome such a range of high-level speakers from the EU institution and the regional level. It's also great to see that we have so many participants, which underlines the importance of the revision of the TEN-T regulation even further. The Baltic Sea Commission is another of 6 commissions, as Friezaug said. from Finland, Germany, Estonia, and Sweden. Our mission is to foster regional cooperation and address common challenges. The Baltic Sea region is a major export region with large transport flows of both goods and passengers, both in transit and with the region as starting and end point. As such, as well-connected and efficient transport system is the key for the comprehensiveness and economic development of the region, but also our neighboring regions and the EU as a whole. Furthermore, the TEN-T policy is crucial to reinforce territorial accessibility and connectivity in the Baltic Sea and beyond. The Baltic Sea region is a very diverse geographical area. We have urban and rural areas, peripheral and sparsely populated areas, as well as long distance. These future have specific consequences in the term of transport policy. Therefore, we argue with a TEN-T regulation should take territorial realities into account when designing criteria for the transport system. To a large extent, we share these conditions with the North Sea Commission, and many of the issues we face regarding transport policy are similar. We also agree on many of the solutions that are needed to strengthen the transport infrastructure and cohesion in Northern Europe. I'm therefore very happy that we are cooperating and organizing this meeting together. The Baltic Sea Commission has been active throughout the revision process. We are happy to be able to share our views and discuss the proposed revision of the regulation in more detail with you today. Overall, we are positive toward the European Commission's proposal and acknowledge the many improvements put forward in the next text. We welcome this increased focus on decarbonization. The transport sector, especially via further use of digitalization, innovative technologies, and alternative fuels, including biogas. This also underlines the importance of TEN-T in reaching the EU climate objectives and contributing to sustainable economic growth. Similarly, we appreciate the broad-ended definition of urban nodes and the increased clarity regarding their role as connection points for long-distance traffic, as well as regional and local transport network. Thanks to the new broad definition, many new cities in the Baltic Sea region has been included as urban nodes, embedding it even further in the TEN-T network. We also welcome the increased clarity regarding maritime connections in the TEN-T network with the introduction of the European maritime space. And we underline the continued importance of considering waterways as important links in the Scandinavian Mediterranean corridor to improve functionality and efficiency of the transport system. Later in this meeting, my colleagues from the Baltic Sea Commission will go more into details of how the proposal can be strengthened even further. And if you look at my background, we always have to build bridges between people, countries, and systems. And that's all for me. Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much, Bosse, and for this great conclusion, actually. Well, in a nutshell, we see that both geographical commissions share this kind the same challenges and actually the same view on the proposal and the key points. So welcome proposal indeed, with still a room for improvement from our perspective. And now the time has come to look at this proposal that has been published in December, and we are happy to have today with us Herald Reusters, Director for DG Move. Well, without any further delay, Herald, I give you the floor for a presentation of the proposal.
Thank you very much, and very happy to be with you here today, with so many of you on this afternoon's meeting. And indeed, very happy to have that very kind words by Preben and Bo on welcoming the proposal that the Commission made in December. The proposal shall be seen, let me start by that, within, of course, the policy of this Commission launched by its President, Ursula von der Leyen, in December 2019, 2 weeks after it took office, on the Green Deal. And 1 year later, our Commissioner Adina Valian, responsible for transport, then launched the new Sustainable and Smart Mobility Strategy. And one more year later, in December 2021, this revision of the TEN-T regulation was proposed. Because within the Green Deal, efforts have to be made on all sides to achieve what has been already agreed today by the climate law, jointly from Parliament and Member States Council side, which is this reduction by 2030 by 55% of the CO2 emissions and 90% by 2050. And ladies and gentlemen, we have about 100 months left until the end of 2030 in order to achieve that reduction, and about some 10,000 days until the end of 2050 to get to this full decarbonization. So there's not a lot of time left, and all efforts shall be made from all sides. So that's why the Commission launched its package approach in the 14th of July 2021 with the Fit for 55 deal, and where we have, of course, also the alternative fuel infrastructure regulation as one of those, and two fuel and refuel for maritime and air. And then in December in the package, we have the TEN-T, ITS, urban, but also a communication on passenger rail, cross-border, and also other proposals like the energy performance of buildings directive. And it's important too, because in there we also have, for instance, recharging of electric vehicles in buildings and so forth. So it really fits together. I wanted to start by stressing that. The TEN-T revision in particularly was needed because the Green Deal obliges us to step up quite a number of requirements. You see that on the next slide, where we go into a bit of detail, if you can show that one, where you see very clearly that the current TEN-T as we have it is insufficient to achieve what is needed for a real decarbonization of transport. So notably, we have been stressing on, for instance, the rail side, that we need to have a good pulling together and putting together of all the passenger rail dimension, with high-speed sections now planned in many member states. And we have brought in a 160 km/h minimum for the core network. And that shall allow to tie together the different sections. And I will see together with you on the map a bit later. Or for instance, on rail freight, where we have had no loading gauge requirement, and where the 740-meter train length was also insufficiently defined and detailed. So these are just two examples of important requirements that we have been bringing in. But of course, beyond these requirements, we also saw that there was a real need to enforce and to enhance the governance. Of course, we are working over many years, since 1992, on the TEN-T, with the input from all member states. And I'm very happy to be back with you, because we have been meeting each other many occasions in the past, ensuring that also the whole North Sea, Baltic Sea and the north of Europe are well embedded into the TEN-T. And we have made important steps through the last years, and this one shall further enhance that. So we are making proposals, for instance, on the alignment of national plans with the TEN-T plan. We are making proposals on increased roles of the European coordinators, and we are also trying to make one more step in our proposal to make sure that the work plans of the coordinators can be translated into delegated acts to make sure that we are having a certainty in the end of the implementation of the TEN-T. Furthermore, what is absolutely key is that we also need to better connect all of the different transport modes. So between maritime, air, inland waterways, rail and road, the connectivity in the nodes, ports and airports and terminals is crucial. Otherwise, we will not have the possibility to use the most environmentally friendly modes, which are, of course, short sea shipping, inland waterways and rail. And these points, these intermodal points, are absolutely of real importance, and we shall be better delivering on them. Therefore, we have also brought in the urban nodes dimension much more strongly, identifying 424 urban nodes of 100,000 inhabitants each. And each of these nodes have also certain requirements to comply with. So they need to have a sustainable urban mobility plan. They need to have a number of indicators measured, but in particular, they also need to provide for a passenger hub and a freight hub. And the freight hub, in terms of a terminal, also for logistical reasons, is crucially missing nowadays in Europe in many, many instances. And so we don't make enough, I would say, possibilities for shifting to these environmentally friendly modes. Of course, we are further working on digitalization and on the resilience for climate change. We see more and more events happening during the year where certain infrastructures are out of function due to floodings, due to landslides, due to wildfires, and so forth. And finally, of course, very importantly, we also need to have these alternative fuels, whether it's hydrogen, recharging through electric, biofuels. They need to come in, and they need to come in precisely, not like we have in the current legislation, but really identifying the distances, the volumes, the places where. And of course, this has been a work which is not coming out of the blue. We have all 11 coordinators. I'm very happy that Kurt Bodewig is with us here today and will say a few words on the European maritime space, the concept that he has been bringing forward and which is greeted so enthusiastically by all. And of course, also his colleagues, notably Catherine Troutman and Pat Cox, which deal with North Sea, Baltic, and with the ScanMed corridors in these regions. And of course, also the corridors which leave from the Baltic and the North Seas, which are entrusted to Peter Balázs, to Pavel Wojciechowski, and to Anne Jensen. And so this college of coordinators has elaborated the TEN-T policy, has contributed, has been making it alive, and has therefore rallied all of you. And we entrust in the proposal a bigger role to them in order to also afterwards ensure that things will be happening. Now, on the number of slides that will come now, I can be a little bit more quick because this was my key presentation slide. We are going to implement by 3 deadlines, 30, 40, and 50, the core network, the extended core, and the comprehensive, in order that in the end, we only have one TEN-T of a high quality. We needed to update on what we had, so the core and comprehensive, because the gap in between was too long, and we need to focus the investments and make sure that we have also a Connecting Europe Facility 3 and 4 in the future, if we can get to that, because otherwise a big, I would say, gap in between the 2 dates would have been there. And the European transport corridors that we put in place in this proposal are there to be realized in 30 for the core and in 40 for the extended core. So you see them here now on the next slide on the map. And indeed, as indicated by my previous speakers, you see that the Scandinavian Mediterranean corridor stretches, of course, all the way to the north of Denmark, into Norway, up to as far as Narvik, and connecting in the north of the Bosnian Gulf. You will see on this map that we have added a corridor through the Western Balkans, which is absolutely a missing link today. and the Western Balkans are situated within the EU territory. You also see a new corridor from the Baltic Sea towards the Aegean Sea, so the Baltic Black Aegean Sea corridor in purple in the east of this map. And we have also reinforced the ties with Ireland after the Brexit, and Ireland is now connected to 2 corridors. So this map should be around until 2050. It is also taking into account the rail freight corridors that have been integrated here. If you look into the eligibility in the next maps, you will see first one coming now is the inland waterways and maritime and the ports. I will not dwell on it because I know that Kurt Bodewig will certainly say a few words on this one. But let us have a look at the next one, which is the high-speed passenger rail map. All of these lines on the map are studied in great detail because each of them also links to eligibility and funding possibilities, not only the CEF, but also the RRF, the Cohesion Fund, the InvestEU, the EIB lending, and so forth. You see thin lines, which are the comprehensive. You see fat lines, which are in green, the core network, and in pink, also the core network, but then for high speed. High speed meaning more than 200 kilometers per hour. And what I'm very positive about is that for the first time, we can clearly identify this high-speed network expanding from Western Europe to the north, with a planning now finally there also for Sweden and Finland. Of course, the Baltic states were there already. Extensions then from Poland towards also the Czech Republic, Slovakia, and Hungary, and continuing then to the east to Romania. And we already had, of course, the Greek sections there, but also in the West, many sections that complement. And this, of course, will allow by 2030 for a big part and 2040 to complete a real network as desired today by citizens and business that allows also alternatives for long distance travel by rail, replacing also short haul and middle haul flights within Europe. The next slide shows then the rail freight map, but I am not going to dwell. And the last slide shows the road map. And the 4 maps that I've shown constitute what is eligible and what should be completed by the different deadlines. And I think that here this completes my presentation, if I'm correct. Yes. I'm available, of course, for questions. We are at the start of the co-decision process. The reception so far is very positive, and we hope that we can keep this ambition. And I'm very happy for further suggestions, which can help only to improve on the text. If they come from you through the council side and through the parliament side in the co-decision, that will be most welcome. And I'm also thinking, of course, in your work that you are doing together with the European coordinators, that will also already feed into the process of making these corridors a reality. Thank you very much for your attention, and back to you.
Thank you very much, Harold, for this. I know that it's quite challenging to sum up such a regulation in 15 minutes and in a single presentation. So congratulations for that. It was really clear. Great overview of the whole proposal. As I said before, and as Preben and Bosse underlined, we too are quite positive on the proposal. Of course, we always feel that there are room for improvements, but as you said, co-decision process is starting and will surely contribute to that. I just wanted to underline the point you stress and the work of the coordinators over the last few years and the work of your teams as well on the proposal and on the series of public consultations they've been since the evaluation 3 years ago now, organizing meetings with all relevant stakeholders and so on. It's come up with a quite impressive result, I have to say, so a big congratulations on that. Just wanted to stress this point. Next, we're really happy to have with us today Professor Kurt Bodewig, the coordinator for Motorways of the Sea, with us. You know, that is a new approach to transport mode in the proposal for a new TEN-T regulation, with a structure that really focuses on each mode and a new approach to what was before the motorways of the sea. And we are really happy to have Professor Bodvik with us today to explain us the vision he had on that and well, in a nutshell, what does the new maritime pillar of the TEN-T look like? So, Professor Bodvik, the floor is yours.
Yes, dear Lucas, it's possible to open my my
Yeah,
camera.
yeah. Of course, yeah. Please do.
That would be fine.
We shut it down.
I'm here, but I can't open the camera. But if not, please show the slide, and I will speak until we have opened the camera.
Show the slide. The camera, I don't think that we can open it from here. It's don't you have the logo on the top?
Yes, I
right
tried to activate it, but it's not possible. So the camera is not open. But don't lose the time. So I will speak, and perhaps later I'm on the screen with my own. Okay, distinguished friends, it's a pleasure for me to be with you today. Allow me to thank the organizers for inviting me to this conference. The topic of today's conference is very pertinent in my daily work, and I congratulate Harold and his team for the new, in my view, very extraordinary TEN-T proposal. The new proposal is a step in the right direction. I took only one infographic with me, and I see you all can see it. I hope you all can see it. I think this new proposal is a step in the right direction for the transport sector as a whole, but especially for the maritime sector. As European coordinator for the motorways of the sea, one of my main priorities is to promote maritime transport as one of the main solutions for the Green Deal and the sustainable and smart mobility strategy. The maritime pillar of the TEN-T proposal is doing that by focusing on promoting of short-sea shipping as well as improved hinterland connectivities for ports as well for inland waterways and the other sustainable transport scheme, the rail system. I thank the CPRM Commission for their helpful policy position. I think it's very helpful. And what I can say in this case is also that we have a very close contact to the stakeholders, as well a very good work with Harold and his team. And I think the result is such one we can discuss, but it's on a really good way. With the establishment of the European maritime space, we are moving towards a sustainable, smart, seamless and resilient maritime sector. I will elaborate on these four factors you see in the center of the slide. Firstly, a more sustainable sector means continued calls for innovation and research to decarbonize maritime transport. I strongly advocate for investment in alternative fuels infrastructure and in electrifications of vessels. Secondly, the digitalization plays a central role for the transport system as a whole. A smarter maritime sector requires digitalized solutions to optimize freight flows. The pandemic and the blockage of the Suez Canal, we all remember, showed how important automatization and automation is to ensure efficient logistic change while minimizing human interactions. Thirdly, a seamless sector includes better rail connectivity to ports, where more industrial and energy production will take place in the future. We must help the sector to facilitate the intermodal shift between ships and railway wagons. Finally, resilience will be crucial in view of future external shocks and in view of climate change. Developing stronger short-sea connections between the European member states and the core network corridors are essential. More connection will offer more alternatives if specific segments of the TEN-T would be affected by crisis in future. By focusing on these things, the TEN-T policy addresses the decarbonization challenge of the transport sector as a whole, as well as for the maritime sector. Have a short look on the left corner to this. I'm very happy to see that the vision of the European maritime space that I presented in my work plan in June 2020 now is part of the TEN-T proposal, as you've seen on the right side of the infographic. We must remain ambitious in addressing the challenges related to climate change. And I'm well aware of the limited resources in both the public and private domains. However, it is my firm belief that this challenge is in fact will trigger developments that will make maritime transport more effective, more competitive, and more sustainable in the future. Investments are needed in all transport sectors to both address the threat of climate change as well as the recovery of the European economy following the COVID-19 pandemic. Having said that, the maritime sector can play a significant role of the overall decarbonization and recovery solutions. The modal shift from road to maritime transport must increase. The cost effectiveness, lower carbon emissions, and reduced road congestion are just a few examples of the advantages which maritime transport will bring with. We must continue to look for solutions for the challenges of tomorrow rather than finding solutions for the challenges of yesterday. I believe the new TEN-T regulations will be an important answer for this future question. Thanks for your attention. I hope it's 5 minutes.
Yeah, no worries at all. Thank you for joining us today first. Thank you for your presentation, it was very clear. Indeed, when I mentioned the great work of the whole DG Move on the TEN-T, I would of course include you, Professor Bodvik, and your team, both Tilke before and Cermak now. I think you've done an amazing job. Indeed, the new maritime pillar of the TEN-T is fully inspired from the detailed implementation plan you put together 2 years ago now, and well, congratulations on that. I know that from our member regions, it's much welcome. Same goes for the ports in our regions. And a broad welcome on this dimension of the proposal. Of course, as always, the devil remains in the details. So from one places to another, there can be some frustrations and so on. But there are some very important elements. The fact that two parts of the comprehensive network can now develop a safe project. It's really important for our member regions, for the ports as well, and it will for sure encourage the development of short sea shipping. And as you said, maybe and allow the EU to take a step forward towards the model shift toward maritime transport. It's something that's very important for us. So thank you very much for your presentation. I will just continue on the program because we are running a bit late. As Preben mentioned before, he has a rather general overview of the proposal, and now we'll have a more technical perspective from the North Sea Commission with Linda, who is the expert of the North Sea Commission Transport Working Group, and will share with us more precise elements on the North Sea views on the proposal. Linda, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Lucas. Thank you for giving me the floor. My name is Linda Carolina Enmark. I'm a civil servant at the Norwegian region Vestfold and Telemark in Norway, and I'm also a member of the North Sea Commission Transport Group and indeed a coordinator of our TEN-T team. I will go into more details of the draft position of the North Sea Commission and provide some insights into our suggested amendments. But first, I would like to link to the very theme of today's seminar and touch upon how a connected North Sea region can contribute to a sustainable growth in the Northern Europe and beyond. So the North Sea region territory is rich in natural resources. The North Sea is one of the busiest and most intensively used seas in the world, with activities such as shipping, oil, gas, wind, energy, fishing, agriculture, etc., etc. There is abundant export-based industry in our territory. The economies are open to the world. There are considerable transport needs, and there is a demand for not only efficient but also green transport. And as mentioned by Preben, the region is a transport hub in Europe and a gateway to the rest of the world. The North Sea region also represents both urban and sparsely populated areas, and there is a need to connect these areas in order to support a balanced spatial development. And as you can see, some illustrations on this slide, the North Sea region is also a very competitive, innovative region. We have some spearheading technology companies and interesting activities that will contribute to sustainable mobility solutions to our regions in Europe. Examples here, the Hyperloop test center in Groningen in the Netherlands. We have an autonomous electric container ship, Yara Birkeland, already operating in my home region at the port of Grenland in Norway. And we have tests with the self-driving electric truck, Vera, from Volvo in the port of Gothenburg in Sweden. So I would therefore dare to say that connecting the North Sea region and Northern Europe will play a role in delivering both sustainable solutions and growth in Europe. So next slide. Oh yeah. As Preben said, our territory is quite well embedded in the TNT network, but are still some parts that needs to be better connected, and in particular peripheral areas in northern and western parts of our territory. So I will give or present the amendments that we would like to be made to the TNT map. And you will see on the map to the right where these links and nodes are located. So first, we call for the Oslo-Stockholm railway to be included in the ScanMed. This railway connects two fast-growing capital regions that are only 400 kilometers apart. There is extensive traveling, economic exchange today. This train journey takes 5 hours or more today. So the dominating transportation mode is air travel, and it has a market share of almost 90%. So with improvements to existing infrastructure, as well as constructing 2 new railway links and a new cross-border railway between Sweden and Norway, one could achieve a shorter, reduced travel time to below 3 hours. And then we believe that we could move passengers over from air to train. And there is a potential of 1 million passengers per year, and also potential to cut emissions from aviation by almost 100,000 tons CO2 per year. And this connection is also very important for the 3.4 million people living in this area along the stretch in 2 countries. It combines also 8 labor markets, 50 municipalities, and 4 urban nodes: Oslo, Örebro, Västerås, Stockholm. So the next amendment to the maps is the cross-border section of railway from Emmen in the Netherlands to Rhein in Germany. We think it should be included into the comprehensive network. It connects rural areas in northern Netherlands to European rail connections and high-speed lines. And there is here also potential to move both freight and passengers to rail from roads. And it also has a potential for connecting the ports of Rotterdam and Amsterdam to Germany and Scandinavia and help tackle congestion in heavily populated areas in the Netherlands and Germany. The next amendment to the map is the railway line from Amsterdam to Groningen in the Netherlands. Leiden, we want it included in the extended core network. We believe that it will integrate the Netherlands with northern Germany and the rest of Northern Europe, also contribute to a modal shift for passengers and freight. And according to the plans of the Dutch government, or the plans of the project at least, it will fulfill the technical requirements of the core network and is planned to be finished in or by 2038, which means that it would meet the 2040 deadline. We also have one of Denmark's most important railroad terminals, Padborg. We want it included in the core network. It has similar volumes to some of the neighboring terminals who are on the core terminal or core network today. Another important amendment to us is to integrate the fishing ports of Hanstholm and Skagen in Denmark to the comprehensive networks. They do not meet the threshold criteria for comprehensive ports based on tons or volume, but we believe they should be considered based on their landings to the European market of fish and their importance in terms of economic development. And we also know that the Norwegian maps will be updated in the coming months, and we call for urban nodes to be added also in Norway. So now I will comment on the proposal. As have been said previously, we are very much supporting the thrust of the proposal, in particular the plan for how it will help the transport system reach climate goals and broader sustainability goals, and the support for a shift from road to rail, sea and inland waterways, and also the high ambitions for maritime transport. And this, together with a focus on decarbonizing all transport modes, will really make a big difference. But we would like to, for the relevant EU legislation, the TNT and the Alternative Fuels Infrastructure Regulation, also to acknowledge the potential that biogas, both bio-LNG and bio-CNG, from renewable sources such as waste, agriculture and forestry residues in decarbonizing transport, and the role especially for heavy duty and maritime transport. And we think that it should promote and build or promote infrastructure in the same vein as LNG, with a minimum coverage of refueling stations every 400 kilometers by 2025 in every country. Next slide. And of course, we are very happy to see that the territorial accessibility objective is now relevant for the whole TNT. And having said that, we also believe that the new obligations should be followed by stronger funding commitments, both by the EU and member states. And we also call for a stronger focus on cross-border projects, both between member states and third countries. And we're also very happy to see the strengthened European governance of the European core transport corridors, and also the stronger requirement for the national level. And we also call for the EU to have a good dialogue between, well, also with the regional level, because we are important development actors, and we will have a more important role in delivering the TNT going forward. And also, lastly, as I'm representing a Norwegian region, we want to have a close cooperation also with regions and countries in third countries. So thank you for your attention, and I look forward to following the dialogue today and in the coming months. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Linda, for this very complete overview and more detailed perspective of the North Sea Commission and the proposal. Without any further delay, I will jump to our next two speakers. Moving to the Baltic Sea this time, as Bosse explained, to provide a more detailed perspective on the whole proposal, and we'll take my seat.
Yes.
So I give the floor to Lotta and Sarah to provide this perspective from the Baltic Sea Commission.
Thank you so much, Luca. So I'm Lotta Rundström from the North Sweden European Office, and we will present this. I will present this together with Sarah.
Yes, my name is Sarah Kotiokulo, representing Turku Southwest Finland EU office.
So this is the Baltic Sea Commission's initial views on the proposal from the Commission. So, as our chair, Bosse Andersson, said in the beginning, it's a very diverse geography, the Baltic Sea Commission. We have urban, rural, sparsely populated areas, and not least many coastal regions. It's a region which is very rich in natural resources like forests, minerals, renewable energy. And as you're probably aware, we're in the forefront when it comes to the green transition, with a lot of new green industry establishments in the Baltic Sea region. It's a major export region, and there's a big focus on research and innovation. So for the competitiveness of this region, and in order to reach our common climate goals, good connections are crucial. So we have a couple of suggestions as well from our side. Over to you, Sarah.
Yes, well, as Bosse already told in the introductory remarks, in general, we are very happy about the new TEN-T proposal, as you can see in our position paper. But anyhow, we wanted to also highlight some proposals, some suggestions that we would like to see changed in the proposal. And so here first, some points concerning ports and airports. First of all, we would like to see the hinterland connections to core ports and core airports to be secured and to be included in the TEN-T maps. So, for example, here we have ports of Turku and Naantali, which are both core ports, but somehow the core connection stops in the city center and doesn't go till the end of these two ports. The same goes for the Helsinki-Vantaa airport. There as well, the main line as well as the connection to the city center is marked in the TEN-T maps as comprehensive network. So we would just like to know from the Commission, is there a reason for this, or why these connections are not included in the core connections? Another point is the functional area of ports, and we would like the whole functional area to be considered when granting a core network status. Here we have an example from the Port of Stockholm, which is geographically scattered and situated in 4 different areas. And currently in the proposal, only one part of the port has a core port status, which hinders the development of the whole port area, as well as the TEN-T later on. And thirdly, we have some demands for new status. And here's, as well as Linda remarks, so we would like to see some exceptions from the volume criteria, because these are smaller ports and airports, but still important regionally, economic-wise. So here we would like to see that the port and airport of Oulu should be moved to the core network, ports of Pietarsaari and Kaskinen in the Ostrobothnia reintegrated into comprehensive network. And Port of Vaasa, also situated in the Ostrobotnia, should also be brought in into the comprehensive network.
So one of the main goals of the TEN-T regulation is to ensure a smooth cross-border transportation. So we've looked a little bit on our cross-border connections in the Baltic Sea region. So I know that Linda mentioned already the Oslo-Stockholm connection, but we would like from our side as well to strongly support that it is included in the ScanMed's ETC. And what E16 is a cross-border road connecting Bergen and Oslo in Norway with Falun and Gävle in Sweden. Also an important cross-border connection that we would like to see in the TEN-T network. If we move further north on the border between Sweden and Finland, there is an important border node in Haparanda-Tornio, where the terminal sort of bridges the gauge difference between the two countries. So that would also be very important to include in the network. We're happy to see that the short sea routes between some of our ports are now included in the ScanMed ETC, but we still see some of them left out. For example, the link between Rostock in Germany and Trelleborg in Sweden. We have other examples as well, but I don't go into detail now. It's in our position paper. We would like to see some additional connections between Denmark and Sweden as well to ensure resilience in the TEN-T network. And finally, we welcome the addition of the Helsinki-Tallinn fixed link on the maps as a possible study ID or new construction. And if I continue with the sparsely populated areas, which you find in the middle and north of Sweden and Finland, it's a vast geography with very long distances, and we have looked a little bit at the new criteria for the urban nodes in the proposal. It's 100,000 inhabitants or a NUTS2 capital. So just to give you an example of a NUTS2 capital in northern Sweden would be the two northernmost regions, Norrbotten and Västerbotten. That is an area as big as 5 times Belgium. And in that area, we have now in the proposal 1 urban node suggested, which we welcome. But we would also like to suggest that you broaden a bit the view of the criteria for urban nodes, because in that kind of geography, it's very common to commute very long distances to work every day, which is why we would suggest to look at maybe twin cities or even define urban nodes on a NUTS3 level in that kind of geography. As I said in the beginning, the green industrial transition is rapid in this area. We have investments planned the next coming 20 years of over 100 billion euros. And to meet the demands of these new green industries and to manage to transfer goods from road transport to railway and sea, we would also like to suggest, as Sara mentioned a bit earlier, additional ports in this area in the network. And that goes as well for the railroad terminals, which are very important in that sense. Finally, we would like to suggest additional railway lines as well. And you can see them in the position papers. It is to secure the redundancy routes in the network.
Yes, and last but not least, we would have a question to the Commission, or more like kind of a question. So it's concerning the new extended core network status and its relation to CEF funding. We know that in the Article 10 in the proposal, it is stated that these core network projects are kind of treated the same way as this new extended core network projects. But still we have some worries about what will happen during the CEF evaluation if there's two propositions competing with each other, the other one belonging to a core network and the other one to this extended core network. So will they be evaluated equally the same way? Or is the core project preferred as its target here is closer. So this concern came up when we saw, for example, the fast rail connection between Turku and Helsinki, and especially the shortcut track between Salo and Espoo, that this connection was given a extended core status. Of course, we are happy to see the connection in the TEN-T maps, but we would have liked to see these parts to be in the core network, as we see that 2031, the whole construction of this part could be realized. But if this change won't be made, so we would like to really to know if these extended core projects are treated the same way when they are evaluated in the CEF. In the CEF evaluation phase. So this question ends our proposal, our presentations. Well, there's some proposals as well, but thank you for your attention, and we hand over to Lucas.
Thank you very much, Sarah and Lotta, for this great presentation and these key questions. I know that we unfortunately do not really have time enough to pass on to Herald so that he can answer. We actually got partially the answers of some of those questions by his team earlier last week, but we will send it to you in the writing, or if you're still with us at the end of the meeting, we'll give you the floor if time allows. So thank you very much. Now time has come to give a more, let's say, industrial and economic perspective upon the proposal, because so far we had presentation and reactions by regional authorities, but for those regional authorities it's also very important that the key economic and industrial stakeholders in the regions are satisfied with the proposal as well. And we are happy to have with us today Mr. Rasmus Munk-Collind, is Senior Commercial Manager, Container and Rail at the Port of Aalborg in Denmark. So without any further delay, Rasmus, I pass the floor to you.
Thank you very much, and thank you for letting me speak, and also for inviting me to this very interesting seminar or meeting. I hope that I can bring some examples to the table here, and probably also a couple of challenges that we have when we look at it from the perspective from the market. I have a short presentation. I don't know if it's possible for you to add the presentation. I can see I'm not allowed from here actually, but you have it already. What I would like to add as well is that I have one hat at the Port of Aalborg and developing the rail system here, and I also have another chair, as I'm the chairman of the board in terms of a freight organization in Denmark promoting goods by rail actually. So that's the other perspective I have. Can you add my presentation? Thank you.
It's on its way, yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
great.
very good. And thank you. And I would also like to say that I agree a lot with Mr. Preben Friis-Hansen when we're talking that there are still a lot of room for improvement actually out there, especially in terms of the implementation in real life, so to speak. And also with Mr. Harold Reuters, that there are missing some freight hubs. We can see that actually, and when we're looking into the different possibilities that we have today. The Port of Aalborg is a freight hub in the northern part of Denmark. We have our own railway infrastructure. We have, or we own actually 17 kilometers of railway tracks and 6 different terminal areas here at the Port of Aalborg. We are Denmark's only inland port, which gives us some good opportunities in terms of the clients being all around the port actually. Could you jump to the next slide, please? Our infrastructure is the red line moving from the left to the right, actually, and then you end up at the port on your right upper corner. So we have a lot of infrastructure ourselves, private tracks that we need to renovate and bring up to a certain standard to be able to handle the goods at the port. Please take the next slide. The way or where we are today, actually, where we have been developed for the last 3 years, is that we have 5 weekly arrivals and departures with Deutsche Bahn. Here at the port, they're working in a single wagon system, meaning that they're not bringing in a full train every day. It could be sometimes from 10 to 25 wagons or something like that. Then they are parking the wagons here in our infrastructure and switching wagons on a daily basis. As you can see, we have actually we started back in 2017 with only two weekly arrivals departures, and now we are up to 5 weekly departures. You could also see from this slide that the increase in wagons is steady every year. We have last year we had an increase on 77% actually in wagons going through our system here in the northern part of Denmark. We have been done quite a lot of investment as well in the infrastructure and terminals and these things, and I would say since 2009, where we got the tracks from the municipality here, we have invested around 50 million Danish kroner. This is pretty special in terms of railway infrastructure in Denmark, and then also us being a private operator in terms of the infrastructure. But we do it as to create channels and possibilities for the customers in the northern part of Denmark. The business case is not there yet. We hope it will be eventually, but we're trying to create green transport solutions to the companies in the northern part. So hopefully there will be some new possibilities for us as well in terms of business areas and these things. And what we can see is that, which is very good for us, is that the companies around the port benefits from this very much, actually. I would say that that's one of the very things that is important for us is the Danish infrastructure manager, Banedanmark, which let's say from time to time challenges us a bit, actually. You can move on to the next slide. Yeah, and then why rail? Rail transportation is very sustainable and a very good alternative to road transportation. We have a customer case I would like to show you as well in just a minute. But what we see is that when you're talking rail, we have savings on around 50 to 80% reduction in the CO2 emissions. Of course, depending on distance, material, etc. But that's what we see actually. Denmark is a small country, which gives road transportation an advantage, but yet there are very good opportunities in terms of using rail, and we have some very good examples of this in Aalborg. Rail transportation, both internationally and domestic, are proven to be less costly actually than road transportation in terms of our cases here in Aalborg. And another good thing is that actually we see now that companies are asking for these solutions. A couple of years ago, or maybe 5 years ago, there were a lot of talks, but nothing really actually happened. Now we see that companies all of a sudden act on these things, and we have to do so together with them to achieve these European targets that we are all striving to do. The rail is a very reliable transport mode. We have proven that for a lot of our examples here in Aalborg. And the things that we tend to offer as well is a buffer stock, which we see a lot of companies are actually challenged at the moment in terms of their supply chain. And what the rail does here in Aalborg is that it offers some buffer stocks closer to the production facilities here in the northern part of Denmark, and this is actually very good for the companies. And we see that this will be even more in the years to come. And then we have we're never closed at the port, so it's possible to have these things operated 24/7 every day at the year as well. And then another thing that is making a pressure on the railway operators as well is that the road transportation is quite a lot of challenged at the moment. Driver shortage, cabotage regulations, and increases in the rates. So it's now for the rail, so to speak. Yeah, I think that if you could show the video as well, we can take the last slide afterwards. And then this is a very good example of a customer case here in Aalborg. With an exporting company from Germany, an importing company here as being our neighbors, and the operator as well.
Med baneløsningen, som er etableret i samarbejde med Aalborg Havn, får Fibertex en utrolig stabil og fleksibel forsyningskæde. Vi får råmaterialer fra en leverandør i Sydtyskland med bane, leveret direkte til Aalborg Havn, som kun er 5 km fra Fibertex Personal Care. På den måde har vi en utrolig stabil og fleksibel forsyningsløsning. Det betyder med lagerløsning, at vores forsyningssikkerhed er meget, meget stærk.
Vi har på Fibertex Personal Care igennem mange år arbejdet med at nedbringe CO2-belastningen fra produktion af vores non-wounds til hygiejneindustrien. Og i det vi anvender ca. 1000 ton plastikgranulat om ugen her i Aalborg, er vi virkelig glade for det samarbejde, vi har fået op at køre med Aalborg Havn, som har betydet, at vi kan halvere CO2-belastningen relateret til transport af råvarer.
The CO2 emissions 2015 against 2025, we aim to reduce by 25% when it comes to transportation. As well as we are slightly above 30% of our total volume is delivered by intermodality, meaning rail transportation. And this is also something that we want to look further in the coming years.
The saving per shipment is 1.08 tons on CO2, and in total it's 523 tons per year, which represents a total reduction of 58%.
It's not about looking into some few specific numbers, but to really consider the whole transport chain. And here, this was definitely a win-win situation for all parties.
This is a very good example of the opportunities that the rail gives you as a customer to the rail actually, and a CO2 saving for 60%, and this is transportation for 1,400 kilometers from the south of Germany and up to Aalborg actually, and this would be approximately around 1,200, 1,300 trucks a year, so quite a lot actually. But the thing is that we have a lot of requests in the market for rail transportation, but it's also we also do have a lot of challenges actually, and I must say that I'm very happy about the TEN-T being going up throughout the Jutland corridor actually, but there are some challenges in terms of this. We're very happy about this, but the challenges are there, and I would say that we need some action from the Danish side as well here, talking on the political side. What we see today is actually, you can move on to the next slide. Probably a lot of things that we're working on at the moment, but which is very hard to change actually. You have the common rail system, the RTMS. Which should be fully implemented in Denmark by 2030 or in the EU. But at the current straits, everything north of the Limfjord, luckily for us in Aalborg, we're south of it, but here at Frederikshavn is north of it, and it's not possible to drive a train north of the fjord at the moment, and it hasn't been that for the last or since 2018 actually. Could you put on the presentation again, please?
Really sorry, I moved. Lucy is going to put it back. If you could wrap up in like
I will.
30 seconds, because we are running.
We have the problem in terms of the RTMS. What we also have is that the TNT network should be fully electrified by 2030 as well. Currently, you don't have anything or anything hasn't been financed yet in terms of electrification north of the Limfjord as well. That's a huge problem. And then we have a lot of track closures, total barriers in terms of the stretch up the Jutland corridor. Actually, we have plus 100 days of total barriers only this year, and this will continue until probably 2026, 2027. And then we have some of the latest analysis from the Danish ministry, stating that railway transportation in Denmark domestically is another scenario that you're willing to invest in actually. So this is some of the things that troubles the development of the railway traffic in Denmark actually, and the Jutland corridor is a troubled area until 2030, I believe. I hope that you will send the presentation to all the participants here today, and I'll wrap up very quickly, and please feel free to let me know if you have any questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Rasmus. Yes, indeed, we will share the presentation with all the participants. No worries about that. And I invite anyone who would have questions to get back to you. So let's move on. Thank you very much for waiting that long. Sorry for running late. We are really happy to have with us today Einar Virkkunen and Jakob Dalunde. So without any further delay, I will give you the floor. One of you can take my spot, and the other one. And I will start with you, Einar. So basically, if you could share with us your perspective on the TEN-T. I know that you worked a lot on CEF, which is the elephant in the room when talking about the TEN-T. So if you could provide your views on the proposal, and maybe with a finished perspective on the key points that have been raised by the regions.
Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, it's great to be here. As you can see, I'm here middle of the, I think, Swedish forest. Maybe it's great to be here, and I think it's a very important topic we are discussing today. And thank you for everybody for your presentations and views you have presented already. As we know, this Trans-European Transport Network, it's very important for whole Europe, because its ultimate purpose is, of course, to create European-wide transport network, and in turn to promote also better transport connections and foster economic growth, as well as reduce carbon emissions. So it's very important regulation we are speaking about. And we know that we need increased mobility that is green and sustainable. And that is why the revision process to bring TEN-T in line with Fit for 55 is excellent thing for Europe. But however, like we have heard already today, some problems remain that must be addressed. We have heard the Commission's presentation today, and we know that in next week's the Parliament will start to work with this regulation. We are representing also the Transport Committee of the Parliament, and it's already decided that the rapporteurship of this regulation will be joint rapporteurship between EPP and Renew Group, but we don't have yet the timeline, and I think the rapporteurs, they will be chosen maybe in next week, and after that we know better that what is the timeline with this regulation. But anyway, we will come into the work in next weeks with this important regulation. The proposal is ambitious and contains many good ideas, I think. I'm especially glad about the inclusion of new digital innovations like 5G to promote the digitalization of transportation infrastructure. And like it was said, I was really one of the rapporteurs in CEF 2 regulation. And there, one of the main aims was that we want to have more like integration between energy and digital and transport infrastructure in Europe to be sure that we have very modern and smart connections everywhere. And that is something what we want to see, that we are combining better way the digital, energy and transport connections in Europe. The attention to rail, I think it's important in this regulation as it enables the transportation of large numbers of cargo and people in an efficient and in very environmentally sustainable way, as we heard. And I also want to underline the role of ports and maritime transport. It's also very welcome, considering how reliant on maritime transport many member states in North, for example, are, especially Finland, for example. Ports don't just connect cities and regions and countries together, but they also create jobs and have a major role in the task of reducing carbon emissions. That is why it's important that ports are connected to the TEN-T rail and road network. In Finland, for example, this includes the major ports of Turku and Naantali, like we heard before. But it is a shame that ports from northern Finland were not included in the core or extended core networks, unlike the original plans were. Especially from Finnish perspective, there are some changes that were introduced by the Commission that are problematic and must be addressed later in the Parliament. Great care must be taken to ensure that the special conditions and requirements of individual member states are taken into account. And of course, now when we are speaking about northern perspective, for example, the requirements, what we are speaking now, for example, in this Fit for 55 package, requirements related to charging and refueling infrastructure, they can pose problems in these very sparsely populated areas. And it's also question whether the required maximum distance, for example, 60 kilometers between charging stations is achievable in the far north and other areas with low population density. So I think we have to very carefully also look the member states and the conditions they are facing there. I'm also concerned about the new intermediary deadline of 2040 that can, in the worst case scenario, postpone the development of a key rail corridors. Several key rail links whose original completion date was 2030 have been reclassified from core networks to extended core networks, thus postponing their completion to 2040. These include the planned new 1-hour train lines in Finland between Helsinki and the major Finnish cities of Turku and Tampere, and the Eastern Rail project between Helsinki and Kouvola. These projects are important for Finland's competitiveness, and a delay of over a decade of these fast rail connections would be unfortunate. The upgrade of the Finnish railway main lines is especially important as 1/2 of Finns are living alongside this transport corridor. It is also vital that the proposal is fit for purpose. For example, in the Baltic Sea Commission's position paper, the importance of decarbonization was underlined. We need green energy for that. Promoting rail transport will not help us reach our climate targets if, in the end, the energy used by the trains comes from fossil fuel sources. And rising energy prices are not making this change any easier. This is a major problem that must be addressed. So it's very important that we are investing to low carbon energy sources in Europe and also in Northern Europe. Overall, the TEN-T revision, I think it's a very positive step forward, but however, Parliament must very carefully now review the proposal and make sure that the overall revision is future-proof and fit for purpose. And I'm very much looking forward to cooperation with all you important stakeholders when we are now getting into the work in Transport Committee with this important file.
Thank you very much for this very clear overview of the whole proposal and highlighting the key points. I would very much agree on what you said. Very sorry, it's quite challenging, I guess, to address a black screen, but everybody's actually seeing you. It's just the screen that's not working. Many joys of the hybrid meetings. Thank you very much. Our next speaker is Jakob Dalunde. So basically the same questions. What is your perspective on the proposal? What do you think it delivers? How do you think it can be improved?
So thank you for allowing me to be here and to comment on this proposal from the Commission, which I think to some extent is takes some steps in the correct direction. However, when it comes to enabling the green transition, we only go halfway. Yes, there's some initiatives which make it easier to invest in more sustainable modes of transition, but we still lack a clear enshrinement of the principle of do no significant harm. That should have been enshrined in an article, because it's well good if we invest more in railways, but if we keep investing in transport modes that make the green transition more difficult, such as highways and airports, then we only go halfway. The second thing that I would like to highlight is that we should have more incentives to have more investments in the truly European transport network. It's good that the EU Commission will now get to comment on national ambitions to contribute to a more European transport system, but I think that we should have gone even further in actually conditioning European funding of national railway projects with those national railway plans being compliant with the transition towards a more European railway system. That would be further incentivize the national lawmakers on not focusing too much on national projects and focusing more on the European projects. Why is this important? Well, I have once been a local transport politician. And local transport politicians, best case, focus on promoting transport in that local or regional area. Worst case, they focus on making it easier to travel sustainably from the periphery to the center. Usually, local transport politicians care very little on transportation outside of that local and regional area. I have also once been a national transport politician, and best case, national transport politicians focus on furthering mobility within that nation, and worst case, they focus on traveling from the periphery to the center. Very rarely do national transport politicians care about making it easier to have mobility between that national state and their neighbors. This is why we need a more European transport policy, because if we are going to solve the climate crisis, we need to foster a more sustainable mode of transportation, not only within member states, but also between them. And that is all too often handled like a stepchild. This is between southern Sweden and Denmark. It's between Stockholm and Oslo. It's between Sundsvall and Trondheim. It's between northern Sweden, northern Norway, and northern Finland, and also between ports in Sweden and in Finland. If member states have the more incentive from the European level to contribute more on those projects rather than wasting money on new highways within Stockholm. And while some might argue that there's some small societal benefit on wasting this money on these new highways within Stockholm, of course we can agree that there would be much higher societal benefit on completing the Norrbotnia railway systems or contributing to having it more easy to move goods sustainably between Stockholm, Sweden, and its neighbors. And finally, I would like to say that from the green perspective, we would like Luleå, Umeå, and Sundsvall to have status as urban nodes. And we would like that ports in Södermalm, Hudiksvall, Härnösand, Örnsköldsvik, Skellefteå, and Piteå to be added to the European Union prior list. Thank you.
Thank you very much as well. Well noted. I think that you'll make many of our members happy with this
long list
of statements. I find it very interesting your point on the national perspective that tend to focus on capital regions and more rarely on the connection with periphery, as you mentioned as well, and almost never on the cross-border sections. That is something we can observe elsewhere, not only in the Baltic. Thinking of key sections between France and Spain that our member regions there are also strongly advocating for. So yeah, indeed very interesting point. Move to our third speaker from the European Parliament, who couldn't be with us today because unfortunately he's sick, so he's joining us from northern Sweden. Good afternoon, Erik. You newly joined the TRAN committee, and I would ask you the same questions as to your two colleagues. So what is your view on the TEN-T proposal that the European Commission published in December? How would you see it enhanced somehow? And what would be the key point that you would welcome, for instance?
Thank you very much, Lucas, and for inviting me to this CPMR seminar. It is always, I would say, extra joyful for me to take part in this, and especially a seminar about transport, since I used to be vice president of CPMR with responsibility for transport. So it's one of my, would say, nerd topics in that sense. And I also have membership in the industrial committee and the regional committee, which of course I think makes an excellent package when it comes to regional development and the importance of transport in that. And being part of the Norwegian and UK delegation, you can realize where my main geographical interest is, of course. Being from the Arctic, sparsely populated area, of course, transport is something that is always very present. And quite too often the lack of good transport is very, very present. It takes time to travel. It takes time to travel within the region, as have been mentioned. North of Sweden, Västerbotten, Norrbotten is as big as 5 Belgium. If we take all of north of Sweden, it's as big as the United Kingdom. So it's quite a substantial area we're talking about. And then add the rest of the Baltic Sea and also the rest of the sparsely populated areas. It's huge areas that need good transport. I commute about 4,000 kilometers every week to get to Brussels. For me, train is, of course, no option, because then I would never get there, or at least I would have to leave Brussels before I get there. So I'm very glad that we have reasonable air transportation. And this is, of course, also something that is really hard for the Commission or for anyone to forecast. And being a former researcher in transport investment cost-benefit analysis, it's really, really difficult to make these long-time forecasts. And it's always perspective 40, 60, 100 years, large investments, long during investments. And for example, take the parallel, what if we go 100 years back? What did we have in our trains? Yeah, we had coal in our trains. What did we have in our cars? Yes, most of the cars were electrically driven. What if we had said, okay, this is how it will be, so we have to ban trains and we have to enhance cars even more? And of course, we cannot work like that. We have to see what are the necessary means of transport and how can we make them all more sustainable and in the end totally sustainable, of course. And if we have done that for 100 years ago, the world would have looked different, and I don't think the world would have been better, because today we can see that trains is one of the most environmentally friendly ways of transport. And if I would do a forecast and looking to the future, I would say in not that many years, the same can be said about airplanes. They will be among the most environmentally, perhaps the most environmentally way of transport, because they will emit no carbon dioxide and they will not need that much infrastructure to work, as both trains and motorways do. In some more years, I think boats and marine will be the most efficient when it comes to climate environment. I think basically the proposition, I read both the North Sea Commission and the Baltic Sea Commission, your positions. I think you have very, very good positions. And if there is one thing you remember from what I'm saying now, I think the regional dialogue, the regional cooperation, when we decide, when we make this TEN-T proposal and when we decide, it's the most important thing. Because nations tend to have quite a national perspective, which is of course the role. But my experience, and that's a little opposite that one of the former speakers, is that local and regional politicians, they tend to look even more at the broader perspective. They don't care that much about nation borders and things like that. They look, for example, in the north. We have harbors in Norway. Okay, that's perhaps more interesting than harbors that we have south. We need to cooperate in Norway, Finland, and North Sweden much more. And perhaps the cooperation south is important, but it's not the only important thing. So my experience is on the contrary, that most of the time regions tend to have an even more EU perspective than the national level tends to have. And I would say it shouldn't just be wanted, it should be compulsory that there is a cooperation, that there is a dialogue with the regional level from the national level, and of course also from the EU level, when we are now going towards decisions in this TEN-T. And I think there are good things. The climate transformation, it's really important that we succeed. Transport are emitting a lot of the climate unfriendly chemicals. So we have to transform that. My point is not that we have to make it harder, that we have to make it less edgeable, that we have to travel less, but we have to make travel environmentally friendly in that sense. Deadline, I think it's good that we have an intermediate deadline 2040, but I agree with Ms. Virkkunen, it can create a problem also. So I'm a little ambiguous to that. Multimodality, it's really important. We will always have multimodality. We will always have to switch. So we have to make that as swift as possible. The shift has to be swift. And there is a lot to do there. For example, when I travel to Brussels, I think I need 3 or 4 modes usually of the time. And this shift between them, that's the most important things. Cross-border, there is a cross-border focus, but I think the emphasis has to be even more on cross-border. And here the regions have a really, really important task. Biofuels and the links to the alternative fuel infrastructure regulation, it's good it's here. I think it has to be even more important. And I think emphasis has to be put even more on when it comes to biofuels, biogases and things like that, because they're really important fuels when it comes to actually making this transition. Finally, sometimes we have to remind ourselves why we do that. We don't do TEN-T because we love harbors or that we love railroads. Well, perhaps we do that as well, but that's not the aim, to have as much infrastructure as possible. But it's part of something. It's part of building a better society. It's part of creating welfare. Trade makes us all richer. And the most important thing, meeting other people, having a cup of coffee, as much exchange as possible, makes us understand each other even more. And if it's something the world really needs now, it is that we talk a lot more to each other, that we understand each other a lot more. And here transport has a really important issue. So it's not transport as such, but transport will create a better future for our children, and it will give us a more peaceful world. And I'm looking forward to cooperate with you in the future. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Erik. Yeah, indeed, I forgot to mention that you used to be the vice president of the CPMR for transport, actually. So very good that you remind it. Yeah, indeed, as I mentioned before, I would fully agree on the fact that for regional authorities, it tends to be very important to strengthen and develop this cross-border links. And speaking from experience, I see that many regions all across Europe tend to have more attention towards what's happening beyond the borders and how to better connect to their neighbors than the member states tend to do. It's not general rule, but as a matter of fact, I've seen it a lot in different places. If you don't mind, before we go to our next speakers, Mr. Torbjörn Ack, the Ambassador and Deputy Permanent Representative for Sweden. And if you don't mind, Mr. Ack, I would like to give Gerhard Reustes the opportunity to react, especially to the three speeches that you delivered, to have your view on the key points that have been highlighted, and I will then give you, the three of you, the opportunity to say a few words as well, if it's okay. So, Gerhard, if you're still with us, I would give you the floor for a brief comment.
Lucas, I will be very short, and good afternoon, Jakob, Henna, and Eric. I'm happy to see you there, and it would be great to sit in one room, like you said, Eric. I mean, that would be just fantastic. But I wanted to react very positively to what you said, because indeed it is absolutely true, Jakob and Eric, that in most occasions, member states focus on their national interests and not on the European ones. And we really need to do cross-border first, like you, Hannah, also said, and combining between energy, digital and transport. So I think we are very much on the same page between the European Parliament and, in fact, also most member states, as we heard them today, and the Commission. Now, let me clarify an important point. I put it also in the chat. We have not postponed any section of the core network from 2030 to 2040. So, Hannah, if we have on the map the sections between, of course, Turku, Helsinki and Tampere, for instance, they are still there on 2030, but we added on top the high-speed links. So they are complementary and they need to be realized by 2040. I mean, that's very, very crucial, because we cannot allow ourselves to postpone anything. I mean, I think that here we are also on the same page with the initiative report that was done in the Parliament in the end of last year. So that is crucially important. We also need to make sure that we are not getting, let's say, sidetracked ourselves in the discussions what is important in the local things, in the small things. We need to make sure that we get the cross-border. So if, for instance, the suggestion was to add, let's put it as I saw it on the PowerPoint, Amsterdam to Groningen in the extended core, I would say yes, but only if you also add Groningen to Hamburg, because without that cross-border link, it doesn't make any sense. So the one that was really nice to see was the one from Oslo to Stockholm. But I think, and here the Parliament and the Commission are on the same page, it is the member states to move, because we asked the member states to bring in these sections and they didn't allow. And the treaty is such that we, of course, need to have the agreement of the member states to bring new lines on the map. Otherwise, they are not flying in. So there is a bit of work to come in the co-decision. And we are ready to listen, and we are ready to compose. And we need to make a very good job without losing ourselves in too much detail. I heard very clearly also requests from the Finnish sides on certain ports to become in the core network. But let me be very honest with you as well. Oulu port has in fact not even the numbers for the comprehensive network. And so we have already included it based on the geographical notion. So we are not only looking at numbers, we are also looking at, as suggested, on NUTS regions, and we are already making exemptions from the numbers. Now, we think that that has been a fair process, but we are happy to look in all of the details. There's no time for that here. So I'm curious to go into it, and I'm certainly going to visit all three of you, and also, of course, to have the engagement with the two commissions that spoke Thank you very much for your suggestions. I think, in fact, I would like to answer any of the suggestions you made and help you even how to get there with the member states, because we run into the same issues, I guess, with the member states. Thank you. Back to you, Lucas.
Thank you very much, Harold. I don't know, Henna, Jakob, and Erik, if you want to react to say a few words. Henna first.
I'd like to, of course, thank Harold for his comments. And I think it's important that we are not looking only the population, of course, because I'm representing Finnish people and we don't have so much population in Finland. But I think it's important to look also at the geographic, like you said. For example, when we speak about ports, that we should have very, very high quality ports also in our coastline in Finland, even that we are not so populated area. And it's also important, I think, that the member states and the governments, that they could also prioritize that to where they are investing, because I can see that we have had these challenges with that in Finland and with our government, that they can't really put their priorities on the list. Because I think that now we should also make choices in the member state level, that which are the main corridors to where we are investing. And that's also, we have to, I think, encourage all the member states and their governments also to make investments to these most important transport parts, because they have also very good, I think, opportunities for that, especially now, for example, with the recovery package, where we are trying to boost in the European level this green and digital transition. And it really goes, I think, hand in hand with our TEN-T and CEF, for example, and the principles we have there. So thank you very much, Harold, for your comments. And also very much looking forward to work with all the stakeholders which are gathered here today, and also, of course, with the experts from the Commission.
Thank you very much, Henna. Jakob?
Well, given the power balance between the Commission and the member states, it's understandable that the Commission cannot always challenge member states, but I would still call out for the Commission to do that even more, especially given the dire need we have to have a more European sustainable transport system, both for railways and for shipping. And in this sense, often the member states isn't necessarily the problem, but not enough being the solution. Just a comment to my Swedish colleague Erik, I actually tried to make the same point as you were making, given that the problem is the national transport politicians, not the regional ones, and actually that sometimes the national politicians can often treat local and regional colleagues in a sort of senior-junior perspective, but regional politicians and the EU level can often have much more of a partnership, which I think can be much more beneficial, and that there's a really big opportunity for regional politicians across borders to work together with the European Union in a way that is actually more beneficial to its citizens rather than the member states politicians can.
Thank you very much, Jakob. Erik, I don't know if you have a comment, a last point you'd like to make.
Of course, of course. Thank you very much for your comments. I'm looking forward to that cup of coffee to discuss these things more in depth. But I think that my colleagues has pointed out some important things, and one is of course how to find the mechanisms. And this is something perhaps we can start to discuss in this TEN-T and then go forward. How to find a mechanism so that we get the most European connectivity, where we can have that, I would say, helicopter view on this. How to involve, of course, both national states, but also the regional perspectives to get this. And everything, as we know, happens locally, meaning that the cooperation is almost every time much easier to do with the regional level when it comes to projects, when it comes to infrastructure. And I so much remember once when I was in another position, I was a regional politician, and we were visiting the Commission. It was Dirk Arner, and we visited him from North Sweden, North Finland, and North Norway. And after 1 hour of discussion, he said, "Well, I'm not your problem. Go talk to your government. There is what you have to solve." And I think that's quite often the thing that, and we have to find these mechanisms as well, not just identify them. And I know when I was negotiating 10E just recently, one big thing that we actually discussed was the governance of this kind of projects. And they can be improved vastly in the 10E as well. But I think we have to talk more about governance and how to actually, how do we get to these 10T projects. But thank you for a very, very interesting seminar that the Baltic Sea Commission has arranged. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Erik. Thank you to the three of you actually for taking the time today to be with us. Thank you, Harald, as well. Well, we've talked a lot about governance and the role of the member states. Lucky for us, the last speaker actually represents a member state. Mr. Torbjörn Ake is the ambassador and deputy permanent representative of Sweden to the European Union. I think it's really great to have him with us today because, as you all know, Sweden will have the presidency of the EU in 1 year now, when hopefully the negotiation on 10T will be finalizing at least. So I think it's really interesting to have your perspective today. So please, if you could share with us your views on the proposal from Swedish perspective.
Yes, thank you, and hello everybody. It's good to be here. I just picked up that you should talk to the national government because that's the problem. Well, here I am. But on that note, first of all, thank you so very much to the Baltic Sea Commission and the North Sea Commission for arranging this event. I regret that we can't meet up all together, but I'm hopeful that we are now moving out of this situation slowly, and we hope for better times to come. It's very useful to hear the views and input from the regional perspective as well as from the user perspective. So my thanks goes to the presentation that to the Commission for its presentation, for comments that were heard from stakeholders, from Professor Bodevig and members of the Parliament, of course. There were several important issues that have been raised today, and I'm sure that we will address many of them at detailed level during the negotiations that we are now conducting. It is a complex and important file, and as has been pointed out by several today, it is important not only for the transport sector, but rather as an expression of the European Union at its best in bringing different parts of this union and neighboring states together. We see the TNT as a symbol for that European integration, and it is important to underline that aspect. But it is also an important instrument at practical level to tackle the challenges that we have in Europe. Some of the challenges where the TNT can play a key role is, of course, well-established knowledge, that is, those of the functioning of the internal market, connecting different parts of the union and connecting with neighboring countries. But adding to that, and that is important, that is the climate challenge aspect, and that is indeed a consideration that is now growing in importance, and rightly so. And it will be very interesting to see how the TNT framework can find its role in the measures that are now being implemented by the EU in that respect. I think it is important, well, first of all, we have not finalized our detailed views on the TNT. That is also true, as stakeholders in Sweden will know, since we are waiting for the consultation that we are conducting in Sweden among some 160 institutions and organizations about this proposal, and based on that the government will form its more detailed position. But I can give a few outlines on where we are today and how we see this. I think it's first important to remember that the TNT regulation has been a success and it's been working well. We have good experiences from it, from the work of the European coordinators, the Commission, and the cooperation in the ScanMed corridor. And that is a model that we should nurture and develop. The the existing fora in that respect have been working very well, and there is something there that we need to preserve and look after. At the same time, we need to increase our efforts in relation to the climate challenges. We think that the TNT could play an important role as an instrument at a practical level for promoting the transition to fossil-free transport systems and to contribute to reach our ambitions in the climate sector. So we welcome that focus, and we welcome decarbonization as a core piece of this future legislation. Secondly, the TNT should be an enabler of a well-functioning and effective internal market. The network should help us to reach the full potential of that market, and it should connect in different regions and should continue to prioritize cross-border projects and projects of major importance for cross-border transport. There are still bottlenecks and missing links in infrastructure between member states and within member states, and these should be reduced, and that should continue to be in our focus. The COVID pandemic has shown to us how important it is to have an efficient transport network, in particular concerning goods, and there are still room for improvements in the free flow of goods and persons. Further, the transport network should continue to connect different European regions. Cross-border mobility within the Union, as well as with neighboring states, is essential. We also have to understand that the needs in the Union differ depending on the geographical situation of regions and member states, as has been clearly indicated by several speakers from the northern parts of our countries. Also within a member state, there are different needs. For example, the special circumstances in our sparsely populated areas have to be respected, and it should not be forgotten in this framework. The European transport network should take into account that, as we all tend to say, one size doesn't always fit all. And for example, as we've heard, the circumstances and demands in sparsely populated areas of Sweden is certainly not the same as in continental urban Europe. Now, these are the perspectives that we see for the TNT revision: reaching our climate objectives, promoting the internal market, increasing connectivity. Then there is the question on how to reach these objectives, of course, the small financial aspect. And that is, of course, one of the major challenges that we have. We will continue to argue that whatever we do in this field, we need to operate on a cost-efficient basis. There is a limited number of funds and size and scope available. That is true at national and at European level, and we need to deal with these resources efficiently and responsibly. We should focus on measures and investments which have a clear added value and that are possible to implement in a reasonable time frame. I think on more details, just to we will see where we end up on some of the very detailed issues that were addressed today, but in general, we would welcome the new structure in this proposal. We welcome the integration of rail freight corridors into the new European transport corridors. And we have a positive view when it comes to the concept of European maritime space and the changes concerning short sea shipping. Finally, looking forward, in the Council, the current presidency has initiated negotiations. They are taking place in full speed, and we assume, we read the ambition as such that the presidency would want to reach a general approach by June this year. And looking ahead, based on that, we will see where we are, but we are clearly aware of that this proposal is high on the agenda, not only amongst our stakeholders that we've heard today, but also on a broader scale. And we will pick up perhaps next year and we will see where we are in the autumn. But we're looking forward to this work on this very important file. And thank you very much for today. It was very good listening to you and gave me a number of good insights. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, actually. Yeah, indeed, we see that the Council is moving forward quite fast, actually, on the whole legislative file. Indeed, great point that you raised. I would pick up on your point, highlighting that a one-size-fits-all cannot work when it comes to the development of transport infrastructure. You rightly pointed out the uniqueness of the northern sparsely populated areas that demand a tailor-made approach within the framework of the TEN-T, of course. Well, I will thank you very much for your enlightening participation in our meeting today. I see that time is flying, so I will be very short in concluding or closing the meeting by first thanking all of you. Special thanks to the member regions of the North Sea Commission and Baltic Sea Commission for dedicating so much effort in shortly analyzing the proposal, in nourishing the reaction by the North Sea Commission and by the Baltic Sea Commission. Big thank you as well to Linda, Sarah, Lotta, and Lucille as well for the great job you've done in organizing this meeting today, that I found very interesting, with great speakers, with very interesting sets of presentations. I take from both Anna, Erik, and Jakob that there is a kind of an alignment when we look at the position we've been taking over the last years. It's not a surprise that Erik agrees on the perspective of the CPMR and the Baltic Sea Commission, of course. But still, it's good to know that we have allies in the European Parliament, and that we'll be able to work closely together in the months to come. And with that, I would also like to thank both Bothe and Perben for their great introductory speeches that opened the meeting, if you remember, 2 hours ago. But it was great. I find that it was a very interesting meeting, and I'm confident that we'll be able to achieve some of the key goals that we set today in the set of presentation we had. Thank you very much, and I wish you all, I was about to say good afternoon, but it's almost the evening, actually. So let's go for a good evening, and take care, all of you. Hope to see you in person shortly.
Thank you, Luca.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Je ne pas du tout ce que tu voulais me dire. Tu voulais dire pourquoi?